No, Revant, no one speaking currently. We will be starting soon. Just a few more minutes. Guys, we'll be starting around 8:40. So as in the meet is already getting full. So for your friends who aren't able to join the meet, please tell them to join the live stream link, which has been shared alongside the meet link. Overwhelming participation, guys. Nice. So, a very good evening to everyone present in this meet. My name is Mridul, and I'm a sophomore. My stream is CSC, and currently I'm a member of the competitive department in the coding club. I would love to welcome you all to the orientation, sadly online. The purpose of this orientation is to introduce the coding club to the new members of our college, to introduce the different departments of the club, and to help our juniors choose which field of coding they would like to pursue. Before jumping to the different branches available to choose from, I would first like to talk about the club as a whole. So I know that the essence of this orientation is formality, but please allow me to be a bit informal. I feel what the club essentially does, what it has done for me, is to give you opportunities. It gives you an opportunity to learn outside of your academics. It gives you an opportunity to connect with your seniors who probably have gone through what most of you are going through right now, or would have had gone through what most of you might be going through in the future, who are eager to help you. Above all, what I feel the club does is to give you a circle of like minded friends whom you learn and work with, do projects with, develop websites or contests with. All of this happens with a hint of code in them, and thus the name Coding Club. That's what the club does for you. Now let's talk about what the club does during Apogee. I'm sure Apogee needs no introduction, but for those of you who need to be reminded, Apogee is the tech fest of our campus, and it has sadly been held online for the past couple of years. But let's hope that it does happen offline this year. During Apogee, the Coding Club organizes an event in collaboration with the Economics and Finance Association, wherein a simulation of the stock market is designed by the Coding Club members, a joint effort of the front end, back end, design, and app development teams. There's another blind coding event which has a certain gravity and mystery to it. And the 2021 blind coding event was won by a first year in itself. While we are on the topic of projects undertaken, it would be appropriate to mention the recruitment website that the front end, back end, and UI teams have developed for you people. The details regarding which, how to navigate those, it would be during tomorrow's test would be shared after the departments are introduced. It seems that it's the perfect moment to change to the club's accomplishments. This leads me from Bits Pilani. The coding club has the highest selection numbers in the famous open source development program, Google Summer of Code. There is a video on the Coding Club's YouTube channel in which two of the current members who have successfully completed GSOC break down how they've managed such a wonderful accomplishment and tell us how we could also do so. I've attached a screenshot of what you need to hit in the search to get to the video. That's enough advertising for the club's YouTube channel, but not enough on the club's accomplishments. The club members have constantly kept shining in global events such as the ICPC, Code Jam, and Hashcode, which the competitive department would talk about during that time. Also, some of the current second year members have made it to the top 50 in Google Kickstart rounds. To talk a little opulently about your seniors, they've always backed the top companies for interns and placements. It seems that we current members have a lot to live up to, and we have the best people to teach us how to do so. I feel that this is the perfect moment to point out that we're not just a bunch of nerds who are all always code, but we are a family who do have fun together and just enjoy the code part. You currently are seeing a snap from my formal dinner, and that evening was just perfect. I think it is time to move on to the departments that the club has for you, juniors, to choose from. There's just one side note: the details and requirements for the recruitment tests will be discussed at length after the departments are introduced. And it would be in the best interest of the orientation if everyone held on to the recruitment related queries till then. Also, we would have a small demonstration on how to navigate the recruitment website and fill your preference order and how you'll fill your preference order after the department's introduction. Since we do not have any prerequisites for the recruitment procedure, it's necessary for the freshers to know about the different branches available and to help them get a clear picture of their own interests. The purpose of this orientation is to impart this clarity, and therefore, the next part of this orientation is the introduction of the departments. There are 8 departments, as you can see in the current slides. Each tackles a different aspect pertaining to coding. And to explain each branch, I would call upon the department representatives to explain their respective functioning to you all. Firstly, I'll request Utkarsh from the competitive department to kickstart this evening's orientation. Utkarsh.
Thanks, Mridul. Hey everyone, I'm Utkarsh from the competitive department, and with my buddy Tanveer, I'll be explaining what competitive coding is, its advantages, and how to get better at it. So, what is competitive programming? To put it simply, it is sort of a mind sport in which contestants have to solve challenging problems in a given time frame. And what makes the problems challenging? So, there are 2 parts to solving a problem. The first part is the paperwork, in which you attempt to solve the problem on paper using some specific examples and try to figure out a pattern to solve the problem. The second part is to code the solution in programming language of your choice. Now, the key is not just to solve the problem, but to write an algorithm that does it efficiently. Because in almost all of the coding contests, there is a time and a memory limit for running the code, which means that your solution must solve the problem for all the tests in that given time limit. We'll discuss more about this later on. Now, why should you do competitive programming? The major reason would have to be its contribution in getting you placed. Most of the big companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon test your coding knowledge. There is a mandatory coding round that you have to clear in order to get placed. The questions that are asked in the coding round are based upon data structures and problem solving, both of which are well developed in any competitive programmer. You learn time management under stressful situations by giving regular contests and acquire speed in solving problems that will set you apart from the crowd. Apart from placements, competitive coding will also help in getting internships. Also, getting a decent rank in well-respected coding competitions such as the ICPC and Google Kickstart can even lead to some companies immediately providing job offers. Apart from placements, the main reason why a lot of people are so much into competitive programming is the thrill of it, the sheer challenge that it provides, the amount of satisfaction that you get after arriving at the right solution is really addictive. At the heart of it, competitive coding is a sport. Over time, your enthusiasm and passion builds as you get better. The heart of competitive coding lies in giving contests. The most prestigious coding contest for college students is the ICPC. ICPC is an annual programming contest for university students in which each team consists of 3 students from the same college, and the students have to work together to solve the most number of problems in the minimum possible time. The ICPC consists of several stages. First, you have to compete in 1 or 2 regional rounds, which are held at the national level. Then, the top few teams from the regional rounds are invited to the world finals, where you compete against some of the smartest people from around the world. And actually, in ICPC 2021, a team from our college ranked 5th in the regional round. They're going to compete in the world finals in the next few months. Apart from ICPC, there are some other international level coding competitions too. Google in particular organizes many of them. There's Hash Code, a team-based contest, Code Jam, and Kickstart. Getting a good rank in any of these competitions can even mean a direct selection to Google. Now, one of the most frequently asked questions is, which programming language should I use for competitive? Well, truth be told, you can use almost any programming language. However, the most popular language by far is C++. Other widely used languages are Java and Python. Less popular but still used languages are C, C hash, Kotlin, and Pascal. So, which language should you use? We'll consider the pros and cons of each programming language. First, Python. It's one of the most widely used programming languages. Python is good because of its wide library of built-in functions. Programs that take 100 plus lines of code in other languages can be done in just a few lines in Python. However, Python programs are quite slow and quite slow compared to the other languages, which becomes a disadvantage considering that most contest problems come with a time limit. Talking about C++. The benefits of using C++ are that it is a very efficient and fast language, and its standard library contains a large collection of data, structures, and algorithms which are immensely helpful. For harder questions with tighter limits, it is highly recommended to use C++. Now Java. The efficiency of Java lies between that of C++ and Python. However, Java codes are relatively bigger. You have to type a lot to accomplish the same task. Here is an example of printing Hello World in all three languages. You can see the difference in amount of code needed. So now I'll hand over the presentation to Tanveer to continue the discussion. Over to you, Tanveer.
Hey everyone, I'm Tanveer and I'll continue the orientation for competitive. So, computers are fast, much faster than humans. However, there is a limit to the number of operations that can be performed by a program per second. A very coarse estimate is that your local computer can perform around 1 million operations per second. A supercomputer is much faster, performing around 10 billion operations per second. That is why it becomes important to write better algorithms. That is, algorithms that can do the same task by performing fewer operations. To show you guys how different algorithms can accomplish the same task in very different times, I'm going to solve a classic coding problem, the two-sum problem. So the problem is this. You are given an array of integers and a target sum x. You have to find if there exist two values at distinct positions that sum up to x. Let's take a look at the first example. Here, the 4 means that the array size is going to be 4. And this 8 means that the target sum that we wish to achieve is 8. It's pretty obvious to see that the elements of the array can give the sum 8 because 7 plus 1 equals 8. So our output would be yes. If we look at this third example, we want to achieve the sum of 9. If we look at the elements of the array, there are no two elements that can give the sum 9. So here, the answer would be no. So here we have our first approach. Our first approach to solving this problem is to check for every two values in the array, whether they sum up to x or not. I'll now open up my editor and code the solution in C++. So this is our first approach. I'll first declare the variables, length and sum. I'll take those as input. Then I'll declare an array and take the elements of the array as input. Okay. Now our input part is done. To check for every two elements, we will have to use two for loops. If anyone has some basic programming experience, you'll know how to do this. I'll just check if these two elements give the required sum or not. Now, if they give the required sum, Then I need to print out yes. I'll print this out and then I'll exit the program. This return keyword will exit the program immediately. So if I have checked for every pair of values using this for loop and still not exited the program, that means that my answer must be no. This completes our first approach. It's always best to test your code before submitting it. So we'll try that. This is the first example. It should give the output yes. If I test it on my local terminal, it gives the right output yes. I'll test for a few more. This should give the output no. Okay. And I get the output no here. Let's try this example. It has a bigger array. And I get the output yes. Okay. So I'll try submitting this. I don't expect it to pass all the test cases though. Okay. Let me just refresh it. Code forces can be slow sometimes. Okay, we got this verdict. Time limit exceeded on test 18. Our current code is checking every pair of values in the array. So this is our first algorithm, checking all pairs of values inside the array. This algorithm is using around NC2 operations, where the array size is n, because I'm checking for 2 pairs of values. This is around n square by 2 operations. So what can we do? We need to make this algorithm better. Let's proceed in a different direction. We'll sort the array that we are given. Consider this sorted array and say we have to make the sum 8. Let's take a look at the first and the last values of the array. So this is the first value 1 and the last value 10. These two values give the sum of 11. Since this sum 11 is greater than our target sum, which is 8, it makes no sense to increase the value on the left side. It makes more sense to decrease the value on the right side. So now we'll check for 1 plus 8. 1 plus 8 is equal to 9, which is still greater than our target sum. So let's decrease this value further. Now we get the sum 1 plus 6. 1 plus 6 is 7, which is less than our target sum. So now we need to increase the left value. We again get 1 plus 6 equal to 7. So let's increase this further. Now we get 3 plus 6, which is equal to 9. 9 is greater, so we'll decrease the right value. That's the general idea. So now we get 3 plus 5 equals 8. This gives us our required answer. We'll try to code up this solution now. This method is called the 2 pointers method, because we have a left pointer that we're moving towards the right side of the array and a right pointer that we're moving towards the left. So I'll copy this much part from the previous algorithm because the input taking part is going to stay the same. However, this time I'll also sort the array. This is a standard function in C++ for sorting an entire array, and now the elements are sorted in increasing order. Okay, now I'll declare my pointers. This is my left pointer and my right pointer. Since arrays are 0 indexed in C++, the left pointer will start at index 0 and the right pointer will start at index length -1. I'll make a loop. This condition is just to check that the left pointer is indeed to the left of right pointer. It's so that our loop does not run infinitely. So if the left pointer and the right pointer give a sum that's greater than our target sum, then we know that we have to decrease the value of the right pointer. On the other hand, if the left and the right pointer give a sum that's less, we need to increase the left pointer. Finally, if the sum is equal, which is summed up in this else statement, we know that we found our sum. We'll print yes, and once again, exit the program. If we reach the end of this loop and still haven't found our answer, that means that no two values can give the answer. Once again, we'll test this solution. I'll run the same examples again. Okay, I get the output yes. Third one, I should get no here, and I get no. Last one. All right, this gives me yes. Let's try submitting this one now. This was algo 2. There we go. We got our accepted verdict. Getting this verdict for tough problems inside contests is truly an exciting moment. Why was this algorithm better? Think about it. We are reducing the distance between the left and right ends in each step. Initially, the distance is equal to the length of the array, and we keep reducing it by 1 each time. So, this loop, the while loop, ran only for n iterations, where n is the length of the array. This is a more exact analysis of the efficiency of the two algorithms that I just showed. Think about it. The second one is using n operations, while the first one is using n square. If the array had 10 million elements, the second algorithm would run in just around 2 seconds. The first one, on the other hand, would take around 2 years to complete on your local PC. Even on a supercomputer, it would take a couple days. So, how do you get better at coding? Well, a part of it is learning algorithms and problem-solving techniques and sharpening your skills over time. But the most important thing is to practice. You improve by solving problems. For this purpose, there are many websites that host regular practice contests. At the moment, the most active contest site is Codeforces, which organizes contests around twice a week. Codeforces has a rank-based system, and your rank increases as you get better. If anyone has played competitive games, it's kind of similar to that. Another popular contest site is CodeChef, which is especially lucrative as it provides Amazon vouchers and cash rewards. HackerRank has a great selection of problems to practice and is useful when you're learning a new programming language. As freshers, once you join Coding Club, our first goal is to teach you basic to intermediate concepts and build your knowledge base in data structures and algorithms. Another goal is to create strong teams from Bits Pilani that can compete in contests like ICPC and Google Hashcode. In addition to the above, we also conduct coding contests throughout the year that are open for all. These contests are placement-oriented and are intended to increase people's chances of getting into good companies. And finally, the main goal is to increase and strengthen the competitive culture in Bits Pilani. Career prospects. As we've explained before, competitive coding is quite essential in landing a good internship and placement. And actually, it is indirectly essential for almost every computer science related job. Going into pure and hardcore competitive coding, the top coders in the world and in India get a lot of fame and rewards, including cash prizes, by competing in coding competitions. The better you are, the more returns you'll get. After you get good enough at it, you can also become a coach and prepare students for international contests. And as we said before, competitive coding is all about finding efficient algorithms. There are many open problems in the world that are classified as NP complete. That is, there doesn't exist a good algorithm to solve them. Going forward from competitive, you can get into research in this area too. So that's enough information for now. If you guys are interested in competitive or have any doubts, you can always contact us or any other seniors from Coding Club. Thanks, and all the best for the recruitment test tomorrow.
Thanks, Tanveer. Now, before proceeding, there are a lot of questions regarding the prerequisites. All the recruitment test related queries will be taken up once the departments are introduced. But to answer the current question, we do not have any requirements for the recruitment test. So test ka thoda light lo and just enjoy the department introductions. Now, Nishit from the UI team would shed some light on the user interface development. Nishit.
Thanks a lot, Mridul. Hey folks, I hope you all are doing great. As a member of Coding Club, I warmly welcome you all to the orientation. In this section, I'll be giving you a walkthrough to the UI UX vertical. In layman terms, it simply means to design interfaces for a product or a service. UI UX design has several verticals like the UX research, wireframing, UI design, and prototyping. Now, if you're new to the game, you might find it overwhelming. But believe me, this is one of the simplest tech things to start with. Now, before continuing with the main content, I would like to burst this myth that UI and UX mean the same. A user interface designer is responsible for the aesthetics by which the user interacts with the product, whereas a UX designer decides the structure of the interface. It portrays the user's experience while using the product. I'll give you some examples later in order to explain this concept in a better way. Now I found this awesome template on the web that I would love to share it with you all. Imagine that we are given a task to present a given set of flatware. Some of us might arrange it according to their sizes or shapes, which is understandable, but this is what a good UX does to your flatware. A good UX helps the user to access the content more efficiently and in an organized manner. Now, the whole process of designing UI, from finding inspirations on the web to coming up with a full-fledged working prototype, is broadly divided in 4 basic steps. The first one is the research work. In this step, you find various inspirations for your UI and design a mood board. Dribble and Behance are some of the most widely used websites to seek your inspirations for your UI. The next step involves designing wireframing, adding transitions, and then finally coming up with a prototype. Now, once the prototype is ready, all you got to do is test it numerous times and seek advices to improve your design. And then you finally collaborate with the development team to turn your carefully crafted designs into an actual working product. These are some of the most popular tools used for designing UI. At Coding Club, we prefer Figma over others as it is a free web-based software and it provides an option to work together in teams. Now, you might think, what are the various elements on which one can judge a UI? The first one comes the mood board. They are just boards that are used to club different inspirations, be it text, images, or themes, so that designers could visualize ideas and concepts. Motion design. They are just transitions you add to the UI to make it expressive and easy to use. Typography, the format and font of the text. Visuals, as the name suggests, it is a set of images, icons, and emoticons. I'll share these links with you in the chat box in a while. You can have a look at it if you feel like. Now let us have a look at some of the great UX examples on some of your favorite apps. The Instagram's Reels icon. When Instagram introduced the Reels feature for the first time, they deliberately put the Reels icon at the center of the screen, near to your thumb. That would provoke your muscle memory to click it and increase the user's interaction with this new feature. The Spotify's Year Wrapped. You're most likely familiar with the Spotify's end of year wrapped stories that flood your social feeds. Spotify makes the list as a top UX design example for the power of data and what it can do for your content. They share this piece of content in a story format and gives users one-click options to share their story with friends. Now, I found some really cool memes on the web that I would love to share with you all. But here's the catch. This is how a good UX designer would present this to you. Easy to read, right? Now, if you believe that first impressions are the last ones, then UI UX could be a great fit for you. Being a UX designer, you are responsible for fabricating the face of the app from scratch. Enough with the boring talks, right? Let's dive straight into the working part and have a walkthrough to the Figma interface and have a look at it, how it actually functions. This is how a typical Figma interface looks like. The first thing you got to do is just import frames. These are the different frame options you can import. The classic iPhone one, the desktop one, and much more. Also, another major reason of preferring Figma over others is the Figma's designer community. You can grab or publish all the resources to design a good UI. You might have used Paint, for instance. This would look similar. All you got to do is just add various elements to it, be it rectangles, spheres, colors, and then what happens is after you put a lot of work and research to it, this is how it ends up. This is a classic example which I did while learning UI at Coding Club. Seems pretty cool, right? Well, that's it from my side. Thanks a lot for your time. Feel free to drop your queries in the chat box. I am Nishit, a sophomore and UX designer at Coding Club. Hope to see you under those same Coding Club hoodies. Have a great day.
Thanks, Nishit. Now the app dev department is requested to continue with the presentation. Parivesh, please start.
Thank you, Mridul. Hello, guys. This is Parivesh Bajpayee. I'm currently in my sophomore year and have been a part of Coding Club since my freshman year as an app developer. Having done app development for more than a year now, I feel I'm fit for introducing the field to you, as probably most of you are at this stage exactly from where I started. Ever wondered about how a mobile phone app is developed? How does just a simple idea get converted to a fully functional application? Does the idea of other people using an app that you made from scratch excite you? If yes, then the field of app development is the way to go. So, now let's dive deeper into what app development really is. I don't think I need to formally define what an app is to you guys, as all of us are using them on a daily basis. Right from switching on the light, for example, smart devices, to uploading your due assignment at the very last second, or scrolling Instagram during a boring lecture, or metal exams for that matter. The primary objective of an application is to make our lives easier. Creating something as intriguing as that is what makes the field of app development. Now, what is the process of actually making an app? The whole initiative always starts with a basic idea. What do you want to implement, and what is it that you want to create? The next step is to carve out a basic structure, or what you may understand as an outline of the user interface and the user experience of the application. Once this is done, now starts your role as a developer, as it is now that you have reached a stage when you decide what tech stack is to be used, what the structure of the code is going to look like, and all of that is going to be directed according to your needs. Now, one of the most intriguing and tricky, yet interesting part in which you code, debug, and test your application, and this cycle repeats again and again and requires a decent amount of patience. And then, when all these steps and the result of beta testing your app is positive, you then release your application to the public domain. So, you see how a single field, that is, app development, teaches you so much that you need to know as an engineer or as a person who's going to get associated with the corporate world someday. From ideating to decision making to coding to time management to marketing, everything gets covered. Now that we've understood all the steps involved in making an application, let's understand how do we simply go around making one, or in simpler words, what are these tech stacks which I mentioned about earlier. The first tech stack which we are about to introduce is native app development. Native apps are developed through the native operating environment. Example, Java or Kotlin for Android and Swift for iOS. Android Studio is the official IDE that is integrating development environment for making Android applications. The design and styling in native Android is done using XML, which is Extensible Markup Language. The next tech stack is cross-platform app development. Now, cross-platform mobile development is the creation of software apps compatible with multiple operating systems. This allows us to have a common code base for deploying both Android and iOS versions of our apps, thus speeding up the development process as well as having uniform UI easily across platforms. Example, Flutter, which is a framework developed by Google which runs on the programming language Dart, and React Native, which is a framework developed by Facebook, which is based on the JavaScript language and built upon the React library. Now, all of this might look a bit intimidating to you, as some of you might be coming across these terms for the very first time. But worry not, because with us at Coding Club, you can learn, grow, and work upon these skills easily and become an awesome app developer. So worry not, as we've got all that covered for you. Coming to the question on what you'll be able to accomplish as an app developer, I guess I've made this loud and clear about what all pros or what all learnings you get in the field of app development while we were going through the steps involved. But if that still doesn't intrigue you, let me introduce an app which you guys use daily for countless hours with the help of Flutter. Can I get a raise of hands? How many people here use Instagram? Okay, quite a few. Many actually. Now, let us understand how the feed screen of Instagram or the app at large is made. In the language of Flutter, everything is a widget. Right from this header of IG at the top to this row of like, comment, and share, everything is a widget. The widget framed by gray is the main scrollable body of the screen, which has an app bar, which is orange framed, and a bottom navigation bar, which is yellow framed. The body can be thought of as a list, which has many widgets like these, which is the green framed one, which itself has a lot of components as is clearly visible. So, very broadly speaking, this is what we consider as the UI of an application. While getting this task done, you as an app developer holds the complete authority and creativity of what your screen is going to look like. You code every pixel of the screen and control every bit of its implementation, which, trust me, is huge. Moving on to what all projects you get to work on as a member of Coding Club. We have made quite a lot of projects earlier, and some examples are the Bosom 19 Roulette app, the Bosom 18 official app, Bossmania, which was ranked number 2 in sports by the website AppBrain, and the Bosom 16 Roulette. And these are just big level projects of a single fest of bits, that is Bosom. In every fest, we have some project or the other, and apart from these, there are many other small projects as well that you will be able to work on in Coding Club. On the concluding note, I hope to have tinkled your curiosity a bit about app development and diving deeper in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the recruitment tests. Thank you. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thanks, Parivesh. It's great to see that the juniors are interested in more than one field. So just let me say, you can learn anything. Your department seniors would teach their specific field, but the important thing to note that is you can approach any Coding Club senior for advice in their department. So that's right. Satvik, you're up next for the front-end team. Satvik. Satvik, you there?
Yeah, just a second. So hello everyone, this is Satvik from the front-end department of Coding Club, and today I'm going to introduce you to front-end development. So let's talk about front-end development. What do you see when you open any website? You see different text, fancy images, buttons, and mind-blowing animations. These are what constitute the front end of a website. You can think of front end as the client side of your application. The job of a front end developer is to implement a design provided to him by the designer, make the website dynamic and fun to interact with for the user. So let's talk about the stack that we use in front end. So mainly 3 technologies are used in front end, as you all may know: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So talking about HTML first, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. You can think of HTML as the core of any website. Using HTML, you render the basic components of a website, which are images, divs, headings, paragraphs, etc., using the appropriate HTML tags. I've included an HTML snippet for a reference. So what we're trying to do here is create two buttons for contouring the brightness of your screen. So I have added two button tags, one for increasing the brightness and one for decreasing. I've also added a label for it, and I've composed these buttons within a div element. And I've also added classes and IDs to give appropriate CSS stylings to these elements. Next comes CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS is used to make our web pages aesthetic. Using CSS, we can add fancy backgrounds, complex animations, give colors and fonts to text, etc. We can also use CSS for making our websites responsive. What responsiveness means is that your website should look good on all types of devices, be it your mobile phones, tablets, laptops, or desktops. I've also included a CSS snippet, which gives the stylings to the buttons that we created earlier. So I have given some padding to the button. What padding means is giving some internal spacing within that element. I've also increased the font size and made the font weight bold. Then comes JavaScript. JavaScript is one of the most important parts in front-end development. JavaScript is a programming language. Point to note here that HTML and CSS weren't programming languages. HTML is just a markup language and CSS is used to give those HTML elements stylings. JavaScript is what helps us in making our static web pages dynamic. It can be used to handle button functioning, add complex animations, event listeners, etc. So earlier we just created static buttons. So to control the behavior, we need JavaScript. So first, I'm selecting the brightness button with the help of document.getElementById. I gave an ID to that button, and then I'm listening for the click event. And whenever the button is clicked, the brightness of the screen will be incremented by dx. Then come JavaScript frameworks. So why do we use JavaScript frameworks? Consider that you are developing a big application. If you store all your code in a single script file, it will become messy. It will become very messy for you to read and edit the code. Also, the code will be very much unorganized. So what do these JavaScript frameworks do is that they break your websites into different components. Like there will be one component for your nav bar, one for a card, one for a footer, etc. So I've included some popular JavaScript frameworks that are used in the industry nowadays. These are React.js, which is maintained by Meta. Vue.js, there is no big tech giant behind it, but still it's a very popular JavaScript framework. And then the last one is Angular, which was developed by Google. So let's talk about React.js a bit more as we use this in our club. So React.js is a free and open source front-end JavaScript framework. It has many useful features. One being that it helps us in creating single-page applications. Single-page applications help us in reducing the loading time it takes to switch between two pages of a website. It also has many other features like hooks, which come in handy for developers. Also, React.js supports many libraries, which is also very beneficial for front-end developers. Now, after getting some knowledge about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can make small front-end projects. I'm showing you some which I made in my first year. So first one which I made was a music player. So here you can see that this sphere which is created, I made this using 3.js library. And I also added mouse interactivity to it using JavaScript. Then this hover animation was added using CSS. The styling of this web page was done using CSS. Then the functioning of these buttons was done using JavaScript. When I click on the play button, the song starts playing, and then I can switch the songs using the next and previous buttons. I can also skip some part of the song by clicking here. Then I have another example for you. This one is a static website and includes a lot of CSS. So here, this element was created with the help of CSS grids. And I'll also show you that this website is responsive. I'll reduce the screen size a bit, and you see that this grid automatically got transformed so that it looks better on a smaller screen size. I'll also remove the CSS style sheet from this page to show you what happens when we remove CSS. See, this turned into an ugly looking website very soon. So now you realize the importance of CSS in a website. I have another example for you. Here again, the hamburger menu was handled using JavaScript. Then you can see a scroll based animation here, which was again done using JavaScript. Complex animations, we prefer JavaScript. Again, this scroll based animation was done using JavaScript. And then I have a simple carousel, which was made using CSS and JavaScript. Button functioning was done using JavaScript. So now I would like to invite Nachiket to continue this discussion further.
Thank you very much, Satwik. So good evening, everyone. I'm Nachiket Kotalwar, a second year in computer science. So you just learned about the three main tools we use in front end, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So let's see them in action by making a very simple but an interactive web page. We'll make a counter which increases or decreases based on the user's input. So I'm adding a division here. A div is nothing, a div is nothing but a section of your code to which we can assign classes. We'll use these classes later on to target the div and give it some styling using CSS. So let's set the initial number to 0. So now let's add buttons. So let's add two buttons, one to increase and one to decrease the count shown on the screen. You will be able to see the changes in the browser live. Let's assign classes to these buttons. So now we have the basic structure ready, but it doesn't look so great, does it? So let's move on to the CSS part to give it some styling. So let me assign a background color. To the page. And let's also change the font. Now let's align the text to the center and give it a margin at the top. Let's do the same for the buttons as well. Now the buttons should look like buttons. So let's give them additional styling. I want to make the button blue. You can see all the changes live in the browser. So one of the buttons is not reflecting the changes. So let's update the class. The class is what enables the CSS to identify to which part to apply the styling to. Let's apply a shadow as well. A border radius. Let's increase the font size here as well. Add some padding. Change the cursor to pointer. So now our cursor changes when we go hover over the buttons. And add a margin. Let's increase the font size here as well. So now we have the basic layout, but sadly it doesn't work. So this is where JavaScript will help us. It contains the logic describing all the functional parts of our code. So let me define a variable named clicks. And now I'll write two functions which the buttons will execute. A function is nothing but a piece of code which will get executed when that function is called. So let's increment the clicks variable. And let's target our division we made earlier using its ID and update its content to reflect the change. Let's make one more function for the decrease button as well. And let's add these functions to these buttons on click. So whenever the button is clicked, the function will execute. Let's do the same for the increase button as well. So now our counter actually works. So this was just a basic demo. So the career prospects in front end. So according to Stack Overflow's 2020 developer study, around 37% of programmers identified themselves as front-end developers. And basic knowledge of front-end development is essential for all developers. It helps us communicate effectively regarding the workflow with other developers as well. And the demand for React.js developers in the industry is growing day by day. So why should you join front-end in the coding club? So front-end is very easy to get started. The barrier to entry is low. And for the most part, you get direct visual feedback for the code you write. So it's very satisfying to see your code in action. You will get to learn everything from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to projects using frameworks like React.js. Frontend involves everything from developing simple web pages to developing complex interfaces and integrating them. So if this is something you might be interested in, let us meet again soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nachi. So many enthusiastic learners among us already. Just one thing, we have prepared a repository containing the material on how to continue forward in any field which interests you. I'll be sharing them once we're done with the introductions. So now continuing with the flow, backend would be introduced next. Sayam, please start.
Thank you, Mridul. Just wait a second, guys.
Sure.
So, good evening, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good time during the orientation. And I hope that you guys have learned a lot about the new technologies that we use at Coding Club. But let's have a breather at this point. Let's install Lightmind as the Bitsians we are and just release all the pressure and just dive straight into the backend. So, backend as a field might be difficult for newcomers to have a feeling about what exactly that is. So, I'm going to start this with an analogy. So you see it on your screen, you see a car, but what can you see about the car? You can see the car's color, you can see the shape, you can see its aerodynamics, you can see its tires and all of that stuff. So that it's the front end that my friend Nachiket and Satvik talked about before. But is that all a car has? If we take a closer look in a car, we all know that a car has an engine, a transmission, exhaust, and various other facilities without which a car cannot be run. Now, these are all hidden behind what the car actually looks like, but without those, the car cannot function. So that is what's backend. So that was a brief introduction about backend. Now, let's jump into a more realistic example. Now, let's say you are trying to log into the Spotify website to try to listen to your favorite songs. Now, how would that look like for you? You would just go onto the Spotify website, enter in your email and password, and click on the login button. Within a few seconds, you will be redirected to your profile screen and you'll be able to play any song you want. But have you ever wondered what happens between those 5 to 6 seconds that it takes for the website to log you in? Well, let's take a deeper look into that. So when you enter in your details and click on the login button, what happens is that your browser generates something like this. Now, don't really care about these things, cookie, user agent, etc. and all that. What we currently need to focus on are the origin and the username and the password. Now, This origin tells you from which website are your requests being sent. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this origin tells you about from which website that you're sending this piece of information. Now, this piece of information is called a request. At the bottom of this information, you can see the username and the password that you entered. So this piece of information is sent in this format to the Spotify servers. Now, what happens in the Spotify servers is that they take that request and do some functions on it and try to identify that you are who you say you are. They authenticate you with the usernames at their database, and if everything's all right, you get logged into the website and you can play all your songs that you want. Whew. That was a bit of a breather. Now, but we still got more to go. Let's take a deeper look how everything that happens behind the scenes. Now, there are two main things that a backend developer must know how to do. First are the database functions. If you look at the picture here, the data is stored in the database in form of models. So models are nothing but some pre-data is usually stored, right? So that's all that you need to know about models for now. And database is nothing but something that just facilitates sending and fetching data between the website and the servers. So that's all about the databases. Another important function of a backend developer is the authentication. Now, when you guys register on a new website and you enter in your email, you enter in your password. Let's say you enter the password ABCD1234. That's a weak password, but whatever. Now, you might think that that exact same password is being stored in the database, but that's not exactly how it happens. What happens is that ABCD1234 that you entered is passed through what's something called a hash function. And what that does is that it transforms that ABCD1234 into some XYZ123, whatever, but it's a long string and you cannot figure out what the plain text password was by just looking at that gibberish. And that gibberish is stored in the database. Now, you might be thinking, why do we need to do that? Well, in case the Spotify servers are compromised one day, you wouldn't want your username and password being out in the open, right? So this is like an extra layer of protection in case the company's servers are compromised. Now, when you log in again, you do need to only enter your plain text password again, and the backend handles all the hashing and comparing it with the gibberish again and again. So you don't need to worry about that at all. Another aspect is authorization. Now, when you might be registering for your courses on the ERP website, you might not have noticed, but there are actually two types of users on the ERP website. First is you as a student, and others are the administration accounts who handle all the functioning of the website. So there are two types of permissions, and you need to handle all those assets based on the user permissions. Whew. So that was all the basics about the backend. Now, I'd like to ask all of you to raise your hands if you are a lazy person. Can I have a show of hands, please? Great, great. So it looks like I'm not alone. A lot of you are lazy. That's really good. So all of you are really going to enjoy this slide. Now, you see there are three types of applications that one can create. There are web applications, there are Android applications, and there are desktop applications, right? Now, you might have noticed that the UI in all of these three applications is different. So the exact same thing has to be made again and again and again, optimized for different platforms, and you have to code a lot of stuff. But the one thing that's going for our backend developers is that all of these three applications will have one unique backend. That's right. I'm going to say it again. You only have to make one unique backend for all of these three applications. Pretty cool, right? So why would you want to learn backend? Well, one reason is that it's helpful for us lazy people who don't need to do stuff again and again. But other than that, if you look at this graph, this is actually a survey from Stack Overflow. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it says 2020 developer survey right here. If you see, most of the software development engineers, that's about more than 55% of them, they identify themselves as backend engineers, right? So backend is such an integral part of any website or even a company for that matter. Majority of the developers identify themselves as a backend developer. Now, by starting to learn backend at this stage, you will definitely be increasing your career prospects and the easiness you're going to be facing in any of the companies. Another aspect is that you will be becoming experienced with APIs, which are application programming interfaces. Now, you might have heard about them or may not have, but they're all in the fashion right now. So I'll be calling upon Dhruv, who will be explaining more about these APIs. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayam. So guys, did you know that almost every basic operation on your phone or laptop involves different software that communicate with each other? For example, while you sign in on Nalanda, you have Google sign-in options, or you can check your bus live location in Redbus, which uses Google Maps, or when you pay your bills on Amazon from your bank. Establishing connections between softwares helps solve many problems. How do programmers do it? Well, the unsung hero of our connected world is the Application Programming Interface, or the APIs. API is the engine under the hood and is behind the scenes that we take for granted. To put it plainly, an application programming interface is the messenger that takes a request and tells the system what you want to do and returns the response back. To give you a familiar example, imagine you are sitting in a restaurant with a menu of choices you can order from. The kitchen, the part of the system which will prepare your order. What's missing is the critical link that communicates your order to the kitchen and delivers your food back to you when it's ready. Well, here, this part is played by the waiter or the API. The API is the messenger that takes a request or order and tells the system, in this case the kitchen, what you want to do and delivers the response back to you. This isn't a perfect metaphor though, because many times you will need to provide your own data to APIs to get the results. So, to summarize, an API enables companies to open up their applications' data and functionality to external third-party developers, business partners, and internal departments within their companies. Now, let's move on to some features which make APIs so popular among developers. So, as Sayam talked about it already, that APIs have an amazing cross-platform compatibility. A single API can cater to a website, an Android app, or an iOS app all at the same time. Secondly, they provide amazing security features. We can use API keys or tokens to authenticate the user and shield the system's database from unwanted requests. I'm pretty sure it's cold in Pilani right now, isn't it? So why not use an API to check what's the weather in Pilani right now? So to check the weather using an API, firstly, we'll need an API key. An API key is like a password which you give to an API server to authenticate who you are as an user. Then we'll navigate to the documentations to see how do we need to put a request to the API endpoint. So we can see here that here is the base URL to which we need to make the request. And these are the following API methods which the API provides us to make the request. So to get the current weather, we'll call the current.json endpoint. Now we'll need to provide some external query parameters to know the weather, like we'll need to provide an API key and a location, like it is given here. City name Q equals to Paris. So here is how finally our request will look like. So let us hit the endpoint and voila, here's the response. Oof, it's 15.9 degrees centigrade right now. This is really cold. So I'm sure now on, whenever you hear about APIs, your eyes light up and you know exactly what an API is. So what are our tools here at the Coding Club in the backend department? We basically use Python with the Django framework. Well, why do we need a framework? Because Django is a powerful framework to design, develop, and deploy web application with minimal inputs and efforts. And it also provides a collection of libraries to help in database design, URL matching, and coding internal configurations. Don't worry, you will get to know what all these features are as you explore backend. And it also provides some integral security features like built-in authentication. And the best part is it's super easy to learn and explore. So guys, what can you expect from us? Well, we can hope to have fun with you to learn how to code, develop, and deploy our own websites. While being at the back end, you will face many issues while developing your code, but you will learn how to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And finally, you will get to work on great projects and flex your skills on your resume and grab amazing interns. So, what do we expect from you? Well, just have a zeal to learn. So, best of luck for your recruitments.
Thanks, Dhruv. Now, before proceeding, just a small reminder that the Q&A session, wherein we answer all your recruitment test-related queries and general queries, it will be after the departments introduced. What department you should choose from is up to you. We are having this introduction to help you people with your choices. Every department is coming up with a presentation and demonstration so that you guys can get a feel of what kind of work they do. So next, Arif from the Game D team will tell you about the other side of gaming. Arif?
Just give me a second, yeah. So, hello everyone. I am Arav, accompanied by Nikhil, and we will be taking you through the world of game development at the Coding Club with Pilani. So, before we begin, I would like to showcase you a trailer for the games that we developed for Oasis 2019. So, let's have a look at it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now let's talk about why did we choose game development. The first and the main reason is that all of us at the game development department are passionate gamers and have been playing games since our childhood. That gave us the inspiration to pursue game development and implement our ideas. We were all amateurs too when we joined the club, but we have learned a lot in this couple of years. So also with us, we have an Oculus VR headset, which we use for our VR related projects. So that also adds as an extra incentive for you to join the department. Now coming up to our main duties in the club, it includes making games and experiences for college fests, an example of which we showcased you just right now. We work on some personal projects and publish them online so that others can play them. We'll be sharing with you the links of the platform where we publish them, so you can also check them out. In addition to all of this, we conduct workshops on softwares like Blender so that people who are not a part of the club can also get some resources to learn game development. All right, so now let's walk through how a game is built, and I'll tell you about the overview of the game. So first, we start off with the ideation of the game. In this stage, we all brainstorm different ideas about the games and what we could do to implement them. After we've determined our game's premise, we move forward and start working on creating the different assets that would be required for us to build the game completely. After all that, the visuals of the game are completed. We bring the game to life by building up its environment and applying physics. All right. So there are basically two subdivisions in the game day department, the Unity team and the Blender team. I am from the Unity team, while Nikhil is part of the Blender team. The main job of the Unity team is to bring the game to life with the power of programming. We use this Unity engine along with the help of the programming language called C# to perform this. We import visual assets into our projects and ensure that they fit inside the game perfectly. So we've been talking about the Unity team. So let us look at what exactly is Unity. Unity is an open source game engine launched in 2005 with the main goal of making a game engine accessible to developers. It supports a plethora of platforms such as Android, iOS, Windows, PlayStation, Xbox, and many VR headsets such as the Oculus and the PlayStation VR. It uses C# for its scripting with plugins available for JavaScript and C. Games like Pokemon Go and Call of Duty Mobile have been made using the Unity engine as well. It is the most popular game engine choice for indie game development and has been implemented by United States Armed Forces for its versatility. It even supports machine learning and is being used for development of robots and self-driving cars by using Google's TensorFlow. All right, so now let's have a look at some of the projects that we made in our first year. Let me just reshare my screen. All right, let's have a look at the first one. So this is a simple 2.5D endless runner game where you keep jumping over the obstacles and keep scoring points. This is the game over animation. Okay, so now let's move on to the next game. So this was a basic FPS shooter. We are surrounded by a horde of zombies and you have to fight your way through it. Okay, now moving on, I'd like to show you the game that our team developed for Apogee 2021. So just give me a second. So let's have a look. It was hosted online, so here you register yourself by making an account. So now let's move on to a live demo of making a very simple Unity game. Just a rolling ball. Let me share my screen. Just give me a second. So here we are in Unity with a fresh new project with nothing going on. So we'll start off by creating a ground for our ball to roll on. So let's create a plane and we'll name it ground. We can also resize it to the size of our liking. So let's make it a little bigger. There you go. And now we'll create a ball and we'll just drag it a little upside. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's a little hard to distinguish between the ground and the ball. So we'll create a material and we'll give it the color red and we'll apply it. Just give me, yeah. And we'll apply it to the ball. My mouse is not, yeah, F. No. There's a problem with my mouse's drag. I cannot, one last try. Yeah, there we go. Finally. So let's apply a rigid body to our ball so that we can apply physics to it. You see there's a gravity option here and we have enabled it. So if you play the game, the ball should fall down, right? So let's play. And yes, the ball falls down because we have enabled gravity. All right, so now on to the rolling part of the ball. We'll create a script called rolling and we'll attach it to our game object. And let's open the script. Some technical fault. Let's try to reopen it. Yeah, there we go. So we'll create a reference for our rigid body, a private rigid body, and we'll call it RB. And in the start function, we'll call a reference to it by using the get component method, component rigid body of the object. And there we go. Yeah. So now we'll create a new function called void fixed update. And here we'll add a force to the ball towards the right. There we go. So let's save our script and open the project. Now let's play. As you see, the ball starts moving towards the right because we have applied the force towards the right, but we cannot still control the ball. So let's open the script back up and create references for our horizontal input and our vertical input. Let's call it horizontal input and another public float called vertical input. There we go. We'll also create a float for controlling the speed of the ball. We'll name it speed. I will set it to, I guess, 10. There we go. Now let us use the input method to get input for our horizontal input. Input dot get axis. Since we want the ball to move in the horizontal direction, we'll use the horizontal axis. And for the vertical input, we'll use dot get axis vertical. This will help us to move the ball in the Z direction. But let's comment this out and create another rb.add force in the direction of our choosing, which we'll be able to control. with our inputs, new vector 3. And in place of x component, we'll add the horizontal input because we move the ball to move horizontally. We don't want the ball to move up and down, so we'll set the y for 0 for now, and vertical input in place of z. All right, so we'll multiply it with speed, and there we go. Now the ball should move to our whims. Yeah, I'm pressing D and A, and the ball moves horizontally. Now let's try S. Yes, the ball moves vertically. So there we go. We created a basic rolling ball game in just a matter of few minutes. So I'd like to invite Nikhil so that he can continue talking about the Blender part of the game development part.
Yeah, just give me a minute while I present my screen. Hold on. Yeah, hi everyone. I am Nikhil and I'm part of Team Blender. And basically what we do in Team Blender is that when you, as Arav mentioned in the workflow of creating a game, we have to make assets. So the Blender team makes these assets from hands, from the arms of the human being that is being controlled, to walls, to handheld items. We prepare all of them. We even set up the way games are supposed to look, that is the layout of the maps and even the art style. As apparent from the name, we use Blender. Why do we use Blender? It is a free software and it's a very flexible 3D tool that allows us to model and texture smoothly. It is not restricted to just modeling, and we can even perform physics simulations. There is even an option to code additional add-ons using the Blender Python API. And basically what makes Blender so flexible is that all parameters can be controlled by the user itself. On the net, you can find a variety of Blender tutorials as well as short films that can help you kickstart your learning. So I will just show you a demonstration on the Blender software just to help you familiarize and see what you're getting into. So this is how the stock Blender will look like when you first open the viewport. The scene you see over here is called the viewport. On the side, you have your list of objects and the various parameters that you can go through and check when you open the application. So what I will be demonstrating to you in this short demo is how to model a basic shape of how to model something basic like a torch, as well as showing you how shaders work in Blender. So first, let us go delete the cube and add a cylinder, since that is the easiest shape to start a torch from. Now, a torch is kind of long, as you can see here, and if you can see it on my camera. So we will try and follow that. So to increase the length, we shall let's decrease the radius for now. That is currently a better option. As well as increase the length a little bit to maybe 2.5. Units are a bit big, but as long as you maintain your scale, it should be fine. Let us decrease that actually a little bit, 2.8. Yeah, that looks good. And let us rotate it by 90 degrees on the x-axis. There we go. Right. So this is what we will start with. Now, to get the basic length of the torch, now we have the basic length of the torch. What we want to do is make the head of it, right? So I won't be exactly creating this. I'll be creating something a little different, but it will look like a torch. So we shall extrude this face out a little bit and scale it up. Okay, that looks like your typical low polygon torch, and we shall grab and extrude it a little further so that we get the desired shape. Now we basically have to give the effect of lighting. So before we do that, I will delete this face. Just delete these faces, and now select what you can see here. So when you have a model, what you're creating is called a mesh, and you have three parts of a mesh. You've got vertices, which are these dots, you've got edges, which are these lines, and you've got faces. This is just simple geometry. So I will select all of these vertices and then extrude it downwards by using the scale, because there will be a little thickness to the rim of the torch. Right, so I think that looks thick enough, maybe a little thinner. Yeah. Now I shall scale it, extrude. No, wait, I shall extrude once again, scale it in to create the depression. Wait, hold on. That's a little bad. Like depress it against the y-axis. There we go. That looks fine. And now if we go to the render view, you can see that the torch is not emitting any light. And there's actually no light to actually see what the torch looks like. That's why it's appearing a little blue. So I shall add in a light. Where is it? So that there you can see it, the actual color of the torch body is currently the default white. So now I shall move on to the shading tab to add textures to it. So there are multitude of tabs here. We shall be moving to the shading tab. Again, let's hit render view and scroll in. Now I have already pre-prepared some materials, but let me just show you how to create one. So you press new. Let's name this metallic. So create a metallic body, set the base color to black, and increase the metallic way up so that it becomes a little more reflective. Right now it's not really visible, so I'm just changing a few settings. Okay, maybe a sun lamp would be better. Yeah, that shows the metallicity of the object. Right now you can see that there are multiple faces, but that's because it's also shaded flat as well as it's very low polygon. So forgive me for now. All right, so now we actually want this face to be emitting light, right? So I shall select all of those faces, add a material slot so that I can add more than one material to the object, select an emitter material, which I've already pre-prepared. I've just added a white emission and increased the emission strength. So let us assign it. Okay. So how can we check that we're actually emitting light from this torch? I'll just exit from edit mode, delete the sun lamp, and there you can see that the torch is actually emitting some light onto this plane, which is clearly green in color. Right. Now I will demonstrate more shaders. Let's connect an environment texture. You might be a little, for those who are new to Blender, you might be a little confused because I'm going really fast, but don't worry. You will learn more once you join the club. So let us hide the torch for now. And there we go. Here is what I've prepared for the demonstration. Here we have a slightly wooden ball, 3 spheres. This is a slightly wooden texture. Here I have used just a very simple node setup. This is a node setup here. I've added a little bit of bump that displays height on the texture. Here is a glass-like marble, which uses transmission to basically let light pass. And this is a golden metallic ball. And earlier I talked about the flexibility of Blender and how parameters can be changed just by the user instantly. This is a very great example of that. Using the metallic ball, I can just change it to a plastic, glossy plastic like thing by just adjusting the metallic parameter over here. You clearly see that, right? So that is it for the demo. Let us move back to the slides. Right. So this was a rendered image of the same scene I just showed you. So now in the coding club, for game development, we don't only make assets for games in the Blender team. We also make our own personal projects. And right now I'm going to showcase some of those to you. This is a procedural landscape. That means it is computer generated. And again, parameters can be adjusted by us. This is a copy or a representation of the Valorant Haven map. All of the assets here, you can see, were made by us personally. This is a slightly more spooky Halloween sort of scene in a graveyard, using volumetrics to add some fog and disperse the lighting in the scene. This is a cave using the various light sources such as a blue crystal, a slightly purplish crystal, and some old lamps to sort of enhance the rockiness of the cave. And here are some more recent projects from our team. This is a really realistic looking snow-capped mountain and an image that actually looks like it's been taken out of Google Images, but I am telling you it is not. We have actually made this in Blender. Some more examples of work you can do in Blender are actually animations. So let me show you some animations made by our team when we first started out learning Blender. That was an animation made by one of our second years when we first started out. He tried to replicate the Charleston Temple from the famous manhwa solo leveling. And upcoming is a slightly more horror-centric animation. Using the power of lighting and image textures, that really created a very similar looking animation to some of the bendy games that we have seen before. And next, moving on, this is basically an overview of what you will gain when you join GameD at the Coding Club. You will gain basic and advanced skills in C# by learning Unity. You can even explore the Blender and Python API in Blender to create your own add-ons. You learn basic design fundamentals of how to make things look good. And even whatever you make here goes onto your portfolio and basically expands your CV. On the right are the basic career options. AI programmer is, you might be a little confused, like where is AI being programmed here? Well, if you notice carefully in the video that Arav displayed of the FPS shooter, the zombies are actually controlled by an AI. So that is where you will get this from. The other four are basically what we do here at the GameD department. It's a 2D, 3D game developer, 3D game designer, CG VFX artist, and game animator. So I would like to end my presentation there. Thank you for your time. And the only prerequisite you need to join the Game D department, apart from clearing the recruitment test, is to be passionate about gaming and what you do. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil. Well, it's turning out to be a long evening. Thank you for bearing with us till now. There's just another announcement that there'll be a small demonstration on how to navigate the recruitment website, in which you'll be giving tomorrow's test. So now to conclude the departments, the video and graphic design team would show the beauty in would show the beauty in graphic designing. Purvansh, please start. Purvansh.
Yeah, that's it. So, hello everyone. I am Purvansh and hope my slides are visible and you all can hear me, right? I'm currently in my second year and I am part of the design team as a graphic designer. So, first, the question arises, what is a graphic designer? Graphic designers make visual concepts using software such as Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, CorelDRAW, etc. Many tasks, including photo manipulation, vector illustration, designing 3D elements for web pages, and other stuff, are part of the job. There are many career opportunities in graphic design: advertising art director, animator, art worker, concept artist, creative director, and many more. As a graphic designer, you will be working with both vector and raster files. What exactly is the difference between a vector and a raster? So, vector are made up of digitally rendered computational mathematical formulas. They are completely resolution independent. In comparison, raster images are made up of pixels, making them resolution dependent and best used for creating photos and raster images. Which software are majorly used for both of these? Adobe Illustrator deals with vector files, and Photoshop can be used for both, but is preferred for raster images. As a graphic designer, now for the next slide, we can see here the difference between a vector and a raster image. Here, as you can see, when we zoom in to the raster image, you can see there are small patches or small square. These are called pixels. Now, in comparison, where we see in the vector, there are no small patches or anything else. It's just a single line because it's not a consist of squares or anything. It's a mathematical equation. As a graphic designer, your work for the club include designing event posters, hoodies, merch, and working with the UI team to make various design elements. So we basically represent the face of the club. What we design or what we make is out there for everyone to show what we are and what is the face of coding club. So that's all about the teamwork. And now I will start with a basic Photoshop demonstration here. Just a sec. So here we are on the Photoshop screen. Now, as you can see, there are on the left hand side, there are the toolbars. On the top, you can see all the options panel. On the right, there are panels, which basically consist of all the tool panels like colors, swatches, gradients. Majorly, we will be using layers panel. There are different kind of layers. Like on a building, you can see different floors. So here also, we use different layers for every element we make. So today we are going to you do a dual lightning effect. We will convert this image uh, into something like this. So how we do it? First of all, what we will do is we will duplicate this layer by pressing Ctrl J. Now, by again after duplicating, I will add it in a group folder, and I'll go select the layer, and I will select the object. To select the object, we will go select and just select the subject. You can see the AI will work itself and select the subject of the image. So here this subject is selected. Now I'll add a mask. What a mask does is it hides all the unnecessary part. It doesn't remove it from the screen, but it only hides it. We can completely get it back anytime we want, just using brush tool. I'll show it later. Now, as you can see, the unnecessary part is deleted. Now what we'll do is go here and add a black and white layer above this thing. Now, after this, just make sure that you have black and white default selected on your colors palette. Now we will add a gradient map. Now, as you can see in the gradient map, here is the white color. Now, instead of white color, we will choose the color that we wanted. In my case, it will be a blue color. You can see on the live preview which color is looking good. So as you can see, this blue looks pretty good. So we will go with it and press OK. Now we have the blue color effect. Now what we'll do is select the mask here, take the brush tool by pressing B. We will remove the part for which we need the other color. In here, we will have the red color. So I will remove all the blue color from here. I'm not deleting it. I'm just removing it from the image. Like you can see, there is a black color here on this layer. It is actually the mask. It is just hiding it. It is nowhere. Like if I use the white color, it will come back. So that's the beauty of mask. You don't have to delete anything to remove it from the display. So I guess that's it. Now I'll duplicate this layer and select the mask and press Ctrl I to invert the mask. Now the mask is inverted and I'll again select the gradient and change the color from blue to red. This is too dark, so we'll use a light red color. So that's it. How cool is that, right? So that's all about the design team and what we do. So if you want anything to like this, to do cool stuff like this, you can join the design team. And best of luck for your recruitment test. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. Sorry, Purvanch. Anyways, so the departments are over. Just let me present my slides again. So let's move on to the much awaited announcements regarding the recruitment test. So the test will be tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. sharp, as you can see in the current slide. The link to the recruitment website has been shared in the mail to you earlier today. The questions would test your mental ability and logical reasoning, and the number of questions in the test would remain a mystery. Also, please be alone in your room since you're on campus, and don't be generous to your friends. So there's just one last slide. The test would be an hour long. You would be able to take it only once. So read the instructions carefully. A few seconds before the timer reaches 0, just submit the test. Just to keep a few seconds buffer in your hand. We do not want people to say that we were not able to submit it. Those excuses would not be entertained. So now I'll request Nachiket to give a small demonstration of the recruitment website that you'll have to navigate tomorrow. Nachiket, please start your demonstration.
So thank you very much, Mridul. So just visit the website, which has been shared to you in the email as well. Once you visit the website, all you have to do is simply click apply. Once you will be logged in using your BITS University email ID. Once you are in, you will be able to visit the profile section. Your name and your BITS email ID will be captured automatically. All you have to do is add your phone number, GitHub profile link if you have it. It's completely optional. Then just update your ID. And then this is the preference list. You can drag the departments. So the department which you want the most should be at the top. So for example, my first choice is front-end development. After that, back-end development and app development. And if you're too confused about the number of choices, then don't worry. Please order your top 3-4 choices. In most cases, only those will matter. And just submit the form. Once your profile is locked in, you can tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. you will be able to start the test from here. And the deadline to fill the profile is 6 p.m. tomorrow. So that's all about the recruitment portal. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nachi. So I hope we are done with the orientation and just a few concluding things towards the end that need to be said. It's been a long evening for you all. Thank you so much for staying put. I would like to thank all the speakers for so wonderfully explaining their departments. Also to Swapnil for recording the meet and for the live stream on YouTube. Special thanks to the front end, back end, and competitive teams for the wonderful website and the not so hard questions, the recruitment questions. And lastly, but most importantly, a loud and big thank you to all the seniors for guiding us through the whole orientation for the valuable input. Shank Bhaiya and Pranay Bhaiya, thank you for the whole orientation guidance. So now we'll move on to the Q&A session. Shoot us with your doubts. If you have any, feel free to turn your mic and cams on and speak. Or you can just add the questions in the Google form and we'll answer. And also we will have just a sec. We'll have a meet going on tomorrow's recruitment test at 8:30, so that if any of you are facing any technical difficulties, you can tell us and we'll surely try to resolve them. Yeah, you're saying?
Bhaiya, I was asking that how do we take up projects? I mean, like the club itself decides which project it has to take up, or we are assigned some task by the administration itself.
It's not the administration currently, since you'll be first year, right, joining the club. You'll be working under the guidance of the seniors of the respective departments. Firstly, they'll decide for you as which projects you'll undertake. But once you're a bit experienced, you'll surely do your projects. You can choose your own projects after that. So actually, I won't be answering all the questions. The respective departments are much better in answering your particular questions. So I'll hand over them, as in I'll request them to answer the respective questions now.
And also, which type of test will we have for the recruitment? I'm sorry if I missed that part.
It will just be logical reasoning and your mental ability. No prerequisites.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I wanted to ask what all rounds will be conducted after the recruitment test? Will it require a prerequisite of coding?
They'll be department specific, but mostly in the beginning, there'll be no prerequisites. After the recruitment test is done, we'll be sharing the resources. The respective departments will share the resources, and there will be ample time for you to learn.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Bhaiya. I just wanted to ask that what if I messed up my priority order?
You can refill it as many times as you want currently, as in 5 to 6 times. So there's no messing up. As in, you don't really mess up. You can change it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, so we would go ahead with the questions which we received on the Google form. So I think Mridul, you can, or anyone from the 20 batch can do it.
There is no such syllabus, guys. Again, saying it's just logical reasoning and mental ability. No prerequisites. No prerequisites again. The test would be 1 hour long. And what is the difference between being in coding club and being in the competitive coding group on WhatsApp and Telegram code forces? It's like being in the BPPC Facebook group before you actually join bits and being in bits. They're very different. What kind of questions will be? You need not be familiar with any language currently. There are no prerequisites. Yes, you will only get to join the club in first sem. The coding club will not be recruiting in the second sem. Again, no prerequisites. How much time do we have to devote to this club? That's a vague question, as in various departments have various requirements, as in about their projects. But it's more about your liking. How much do you enjoy doing what the department you are in does? So it's just that. It's all how much time you devote. There's no necessary thing in that.
So
One
you
point
can
I would like.
you can join other clubs too. Usually, like a lot of us are in around 2 clubs, so that's not an issue. But be sure that you can manage your time effectively.
So as I was saying that during the fest, you would have to devote more time and prioritize the club work of the club. So that during the fest, you'd have to devote more time than usual days.
Pranay, please answer the one related to cybersecurity too. I don't know about that. Pranay,
Perhaps I would take it up, Mridul. Okay, so related to cybersecurity, no, as such, we don't do any projects particularly related to cybersecurity, but yeah, you'll find many like-minded people who do work and research in cybersecurity. So yeah, but there isn't any like demarcated department as such, like cybersecurity department of Coding Club. But maybe in some aspects of backend development, you might find some insights of cybersecurity as well.
I think that the questions are being repetitive, so it'll be better if we scroll down.
So about data structures and algorithms, it's generally I would say it's better if you learn C++ too, because really it takes more time to learn data structures and algorithms than it does to learn C++. So if you already know C, then learning C++ won't take you long.
Again, regarding Web3, we don't have any dedicated department for Web3, but you'd surely find people in the club who are good with Web3 development and Solidity. So yeah, you are more than welcome if you are interested to learn about Web3. So I think we're done with the Google form questions. Wait, we have a new question here.
Yeah, someone said resources on Google's YouTube stream.
Yeah, also, there's a question about how long did the Stickman game take? It took us around a complete month to finish off the game and like host it on the website.
We have already shared the resources for DSA in the chat box and in the stream link. So I think we are done with the Google form questions. If you guys have any impromptu questions, you can unmute your mic. by raising your hand, and you can ask.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Revan.
Is the recruitment purely based on orientation test, or after the test you would take any interview?
We do have further rounds. Each department has more rounds after people have filled their preference in the recruitment tests. They do test other skills, department specific.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes, Shashwat, we do take part in ICPC. In fact, Tanveer, Anish, Utkarsh, they all made it to the regional finals.
Yeah, seniors from BITS Pilani, like fourth years, they're pass outs now. They actually cleared the regionals. They got rank 5 last time, and they're going to give the world finals this year.
The number of rounds would be based on the number of people that have been shortlisted. So it will also be department specific, Tanishq. How can I join Team Blender? Firstly, you'll have to keep Game D above in your preference, and when you get selected in Game D, then the respective seniors will give you the preference.
Yeah, I'll go into a little more detail about that. So, Krishna, so we'll basically have, as mentioned before, each department goes through a few rounds. So the first rounds will involve you in learning the basics of Blender, and then we'll give you a few more projects to test, like how you're applying that knowledge. So if you clear all of that and you do good work, that's how you'll join Team Blender.
Athar, we did not have any recruitments for second year students in the current year.
Just to answer Athar's question a bit more, so currently we don't have any recruitments for second year, right? That is the 2020 batch, because we are more focused on recruiting 2021 batch at the moment. But yeah, if the need arises, we might keep some other channels of recruitment for 2020 as well. But we can't like really comment upon that with surety as at the moment.
Jitin, that's not true. If you're not recruited this time, there are opportunities given to people who have knowledge in the respective domain in which they're applying for the particular department. I do have a friend who did join the club, but he was very good in what he did, and therefore we took him in. But it totally depends on the department seniors and the availability in the club at that moment. Prakhar, we don't give any weightage to GitHub profiles. It's totally based on the tasks that you get afterwards, after you clear the recruitment test and you get to the respective departments. You'll be given some tasks, and your selection will totally be based on those tasks itself.
Of course, if you have a coding background, then it should not affect you much. I mean, if you have a GitHub profile already, then you're well placed.
But even if you don't have one, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
So I think you don't have any other questions right now, or if you have, please shoot right away. So shall we conclude the meet? That's a vague question. Yes, there are chances of not getting selected, of course, because we can't select everyone, right? That's why we have the select recruitment test and procedures. So of course, there's chances of not getting selected. So let's end. Thank you for. Okay, sorry, I didn't read that. The resources are shared in the chat, and wait a minute, I'll give it to you again. Oh, Pranavya, thank you. So, okay, let's conclude the meet. Bye, good night. And thank you for being here.